Okay, to map our domain classes to our API resources, we're going to use a tool called AutoMapper. AutoMapper is a convention-based mapping tool and makes it incredibly easy to map two different objects together. So we need to install two NuGet packages. .NET add package AutoMapper. And of course, if you're inside Visual Studio, you would run install-package AutoMapper. Now the second package we need to install, .NET add package, that's automapper.extensions.microsoft.dependency injection. Now, it's very important that you use the version I'm going to use here, that is 1.2.0. The latest version, which is version 2 at the time of recording the video, has a problem. I couldn't make it work. So use version 1.2.0. And finally, .NET Restore. Okay, now we go to the startup class. Here in configure services method, we're going to add dependency injection for AutoMapper. So services.add AutoMapper. This is an extension method on iService collection that is defined in the second package we just installed. So command and period using AutoMapper. Beautiful. Now with this, we can go to our makes controller, and in the constructor, we can inject IMapper interface. Let's resolve the namespace using AutoMapper mapper. Once again, command and period, initialize field from parameter. Now in our action, instead of returning our domain classes, we want to map them to our API resources and then return them. So I'm going to store these in a variable called makes, and then return mapper.map. This is a generic method with two generic parameters, source type and target type. So my source type is a list of make, and the target type is list of make resource. And as the argument to this method, we pass this makes object. Okay, we have a red underline here because this method is going to return an IEnumerable of make, but we want to change this to make resource. Now let's import the namespace for this. Beautiful. So this is how we do mapping. But how does AutoMapper know how to map the properties of one class to another? We need to create a mapping profile for that. So I'm going to create a new folder in our application called mapping. Now inside this folder, I'm going to add a new class called mapping profile. We should derive this from the profile class in AutoMapper. Let's resolve the namespace. Okay. Here we add a constructor for mapping profile. And in the constructor, we create maps between different types. So here we have a method inside the profile class called createMap. Again, it's a generic method with two generic parameters, source type and target type. So I want to map make to make resource. Let's resolve the namespaces. So when we call this, AutoMapper scans the properties of these two types, and if the property names match, they can be automatically mapped by AutoMapper. If they don't, then we need to supply additional configuration. So here's a map between make and make resource. But our make class has a collection of models. So we should also create a map between model and model resource. So create map, model to model resource. And note that these maps are unidirectional. So currently I can only map a make to make resource, but not the other way around. For that, I need to create a separate map. All right, that's pretty much it. Now let's test our application. So back in the browser, refresh. Now we get this error, missing type map configuration or unsupported mapping. So AutoMapper is complaining that there is no map between make and make resource. The reason for that is because this profile that we created is loaded only once during the application startup. So we need to stop our web server and run .NET watch run one more time. And now let's refresh. Beautiful. So this is the structure that we wanted to return from our API. Each make has an ID and a name and a bunch of models, and each model has an ID and a name, and there's no loop here. Now, in case you're wondering how I'm getting this syntax highlighting for my JSON objects, I've installed a Chrome extension called JSON View. So simply search for JSON View in Google, add this extension to your Chrome, and then you will get this nice syntax highlighting. So we successfully built an API to return makes and models. The challenge I gave you for this week also included an API to return the list of features. The steps to build this API are exactly the same as the steps I have done in this section. So I'm not going to waste time and repeat all these steps one more time. So I leave it up to you to do it as an exercise. And if you want to see my code, you can look at the GitHub repository I've created for this course. If you look at the list of commits, there I will have a commit for building the features API. I hope you enjoyed this section. And next we're going to look at the second challenge. All the best, and I'll be back next week.